Starbucks started here in Seattle with some people who would run up to Vancouver's and buy Murchie's tea, because all we had in the 60s was Lipton and Brook Bond and maybe Constant Comment if you got out of hand. But they'd go up to Vancouver, buy tea in bulk, bring it down here and sell it through Starbucks. So they started out as a tea store, and then they brought in some coffee that sold real well. By 1980, a fellow by the name of Howard Schultz showed up and said, we got to sell a lot more coffee. How do you do that? Let's go around the world and see where they sell the most coffee. And then traveling around looking where they sold coffee, he says, ah, the Italians. That is the perfect combination for selling coffee, the Italian coffee shop experience. So when you walk into a Starbucks today, you're walking into an Italian coffee shop experience, correct? Yes?
No.
No. No, you're not. It's different. Yeah, you walk into an Italian coffee shop experience, if you can get somebody to pay attention to you, that's one thing. Second thing is order a venti and see what they say. What? What do you want? You want 20? You want a chimney? What do you want at venti? What is the #1 selling drink in Starbucks? By far. It's their cafe macchiato cream da-da-da-da caramel, right? Starbucks is a candy store. Okay, their #1 flavor happens to be coffee, but it's a candy store. Just like McDonald's isn't a food store, it's a toy store. Nobody goes there for the food. The kids are screaming, I want the toys, I want the toys. That's why they go to McDonald's. There's a product in Europe called Nutella. I think it's chocolate and hazelnut or something. And I've never had it, but people say they had it in Europe, and had it in the United States. It's different here. It's formulated different for the U.S. market. You go to Costco, sells Mexican Coca-Cola. Why Mexican Coca-Cola? Because they use sugar. Well, 25 years, 30 years in the United States, they don't brew it with sugar. They brew it with some sort of chemical. Because of sugar subsidies, we pay 2.5 times the world price for sugar in the United States, because Americans pay the most for everything. But because of that, they use something else to sweeten Coca-Cola in the United States, kerosene or something, I don't know, whatever they use. But it's nasty, American Coca-Cola. That's why people don't drink it so much. But the Mexican Coca-Cola is sugar, so it tastes good. So at Costco, they sell this bucket bottle, 75 cents a bottle, you know, for Mexican Coca-Cola, because the flavor's better. It's what we used to drink in America. Any kind of product you think about. Buddy of mine won a sales contest, sales rep, and he got to go through Europe, or through France, and got to go to all these wineries and everything. They also took him to the Perrier bottling plant, Perrier water. Now, this was in the early 80s, and they went through the tour, and they got to the point where they're putting the flavors in the Perrier water. And the French people in the tour group were all getting all excited and exercised and outraged and whatever else. He didn't speak French, so he asked the tour guide why they seemed to be getting so upset. And the tour guide said, well, they don't know about Perrier putting flavor in the waters at the bottling plant. He said, well, that's all over America. Why wouldn't the French know about flavors in Perrier water? And the guide explained patiently, in France, when you want to introduce a little lime flavoring into a glass of water, you pour the plain Perrier into the glass, you slice the lime at the table, and you introduce the lime at the table. You certainly don't put the lime in at the bottling plant. Okay, that's terrible. The Americans, this is for the American market, that's why you know about it, you Americans know about it, because it's for the United States market. Okay? We would never do that in France. So the French can't believe it. Americans don't understand water. They don't understand Jerry Lewis. They don't understand anything. Now the point is, the French would never come up with that idea, but it had to be introduced by the Americans to sell more Perrier water into the United States. That's, again, U.S. design for the foreign products. Okay? So anything you can think of has to be designed for the U.S. market if you want it to sell in the United States market. Now, some of you are holding back. Some of you are resisting. And you're saying, but I'm going to get into native handicrafts. And the point of native handicrafts is the nativeness. Now, the problem with that is that's where I started out in 1977 as a buyer for a small import company in Seattle, bringing in native handicrafts from the People's Republic of China, when the communists were still in charge. The red guards there with their Mao buttons on and sitting across the table from us. And the first question out of their mouths was, where are your designs? Chairman Mao said, sell to the Americans. Well, how do you sell more to the Americans? You design for the U.S. market is how you sell more to the Americans. So the Chinese sell a basket for collecting shellfish on the Guangdong province coast, and it's a great basket for that, but that's not what we use it for. We use it as a planter basket, and it was the wrong shape, size for our purposes. So we had to come to the Chinese and say a little bit wider, a little bit higher for our purposes. And the Chinese say, well, what are you using it for? Well, we put plants, potted plants in them. Bizarre. But hey, don't disagree with them. Chairman Mao said sell to them. So they would redesign to our specifications. Their material, their workmanship, but our specifications. Brought in a little food basket. Single-serving bread basket. Having sold our products into the market, the feedback came back was, yes, we love the bread baskets. We want single-serving bread baskets. So we bring the design to the Chinese. And the Chinese look at it and say, we already make this. Said, no, look at the dimensions. They look at the dimensions and say, well, it's tiny. Yes, a single-serving bread basket. Single-serving bread basket? Say yes to the Chinese. And they say, oh, yes, we heard about you Americans. You're all very lonely people. You all eat alone. In China, we all eat together. And we say, well, this is actually for eating together. This is for a banquet situations. And now the Chinese say, what? A banquet situation? You've got single serving in a banquet? Don't you know that a banquet is a big platter in the center and everybody serves out from there? What do you guys do in America? You all set up your own fort at dinner time? Portion control? What do you do? It doesn't make any sense at all. Point is they would never design a product that would sell well in the United States. The French would never design a water, Perrier's designer water, that would sell well in the United States. The designs have to come from here to them. And think about the people overseas who want to sell into the United States. What do they want to sell? What Americans want to buy. One of the values you provide in the marketplace is you're bringing the American designs to the suppliers overseas. They want to sell more. Okay? How do you bring those designs? By being in communication with the market. Okay, communication about what? Well, what do you have a passion for? Now, passion comes from the Greek for pain. Excuse me, that's not quite right, for suffering. Compassion is to suffer with. So how do you find out what you got a passion for? Because that's where you do the work. If you don't care about the Department of Motor Vehicles, you may be suffering there, but you don't suffer because you don't really care. What do you care about? What do you love? What do you really have a passion for? That's the area you're going to care about. That's where you're actually going to do the work. Department of Motor Vehicles, you won't do anything about it. But say you love stamp collecting. You're going to do something about that. You're going to solve a problem you're experiencing stamp collecting. You're going to do something about it. And the people you see thriving experience a problem in a field they love, and they go from there. For example, there is a woman, immigrant from France, 1955, Berkeley, California. A friend is sick in the UC Berkeley Hospital. She's got an MFA from the Sorbonne. She loves art. She's going to get a card for her friend who's not feeling well. And she goes to the pharmacy, and she looks at the American Greetings, the Hallmark, the Gibson Get Well Soon cards, and they are so ugly to her. They cause her pain. They cause her to suffer. These things are so hideous. And she looks at the outside, she opens one up, and she looks at the sentiment that's written on the inside, and she gets ill herself. She says, why don't they just? That is milestone number one, when you catch yourself saying to yourself, why don't they just, in a field you love, why don't they just take Renaissance art detail, public domain, it's free, and reproduce those on the front of the cards. And leave the inside blank for those of us who can write our own sentiment to do so. Why don't they just do that? She did it. The name of the company is Marcel Sherman, this being 1955 America. She named the company after her husband, but it's all her company. You recognize the name Marcel Sherman. Okay, is anybody else? Two people. Two people. Most people have never heard the name. So she gets started with that's the problem she experiences. So what does she do? She starts making the car. She solves the problem.
You have me down, 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 down on my knees. Now would you, Barracuda?